Ladies and gentlemen, strategy does not have relevance without technology. Neither does technology hold any relevance without good strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are moving to the second phase of the conference. Here, the conference will have or take two tracks, Audi 1 for strategy session and Audi 2 for technology sessions. Starting with the strategy session, the first session we have is the Fireside Chat on network architecture needed for 5G rollout in India. Here, Jagbir Singh, CTO Vodafone Idea Limited, is in conversation with Ibrahim Ahmad, consulting editor, CyberMedia Group. Jagbir is a veteran in the telecom industry with over 32 years of experience in providing technology leadership and strategic vision to all major telcos in India and globally. As a member of the core leadership team of We in India, he plays a critical role in strategic planning of the technology and network infrastructure for the company. A seasoned professional in telecom networks and technologies, he is a strategic thinker and a team builder with in-depth knowledge and experience in managing network lifecycle of planning, engineering, deployment, and operations in both B2C and B2B segments. Over to you, Ibrahim, for this fireside.
A very warm welcome to Jagbir Singh, Chief Technology Officer at Vodafone Idea and the man who has built some of the biggest networks in the world, the person who knows the telecom technologies and the telecom business inside out. It's really a great pleasure to have you with us, Jagbir. We are going to discuss today the network architectures required for the 5G rollouts. The entire country is euphoric about 5G and what all it can do and the great results that it will have on the economy of the country and so and so. Therefore, I would like to start by asking you, Jagbir, that the current network architectures, how ready are those in terms of being forward compatible with the 5G applications and building blocks? Operators have invested huge amounts of money so far in the existing networks. So the current network architectures, how ready they will be for being forward compatible with 5G applications and various other building blocks? Jagbir.
Thanks, Ibrahim. Good to see you after a long time.
Thank you so much.
Let me just, whatever little I know about the telecom, I will just try to give my views. So let's see the architecture side in two parts. So we can divide the architecture in the RAN and the core. So if we take the RAN part, again, the RAN part, maybe we can divide in two parts. One is, obviously, we are all used to deploying the classical RAN, where like DU is basically digital unit. We used to call it BBU. It's integrated, so there's no CU and DU separately. And then there's a radio unit. So we have all deployed the 4G network, which is basically a classical RAN architecture. And whatever at Vodafone Idea we have deployed in last 3-4 years, all those radio equipments are actually capable of supporting 5G in the same band. So actually we can upgrade them anytime just by doing the software upgrade. And we are ensuring going forward, whatever we are deploying, all those radio equipment, they support 5G as long as we deploy the 5G in the same band as the 4G is. Now coming back to the new architecture, which is going to be Open RAN. There's a lot of discussion around the Open RAN happening in the industry. I think that architecture also we are doing the trial of the Open RAN, and we have done the trial in the past, and it is actually getting matured, and the deployment of Open RAN will happen as and when it gets fully matured, number one. Number two, the benefit of this architecture for sure is going to be, actually you can disaggregate the BBU, which is basically the baseband unit for the radio, and this can be disintegrated into the digital unit and the control unit. And again, in fact, if you want to go in the detail, the control unit again can be like centralized and decentralized, which is like a control plane and the user plane. So the user plane will be co-located with the radio unit, and control plane can be centralized. And the architecture of Open RAN is for sure is going to be, it's a very like a good architecture for supporting like machine learnings, artificial intelligence based application. Data analytics becomes very easy, and actually it is a much more flexible architecture. Only thing is it should get matured. So today, whatever the 5G networks are deployed, most of them, I would say 90% plus, they are actually the classical architecture based. But as I said, that like classical architecture also can be used for the giving the 5G services, and all the radios are capable. And actually, it's going to be initially we call it as NSA architecture, which is basically non-standalone. That means it's integrated with the 4G and 5G core, whereby you can actually have both, like services being supported. At the same time, in this actually is going to be a dual connectivity. So the 4G will coexist with 5G, whereby the same device can be connected on the both the networks simultaneously. So the benefit of the 4G coverage and the, having the seamless coverage, that benefit of 4G will come, and 5G services we can give wherever, whichever the pocket, whichever cities we want to give. So I think from the ORAN or the RAN perspective, we are ready for 5G. In the as I said, in the same frequency band. Coming back to the core side, I think core side in general in the industry, not only Vodafone Idea, we of course, but everyone is actually deploying the cloud-based architecture, which is actually virtual machines, which are supporting all the core VNFs, which are like whether it's IMS or it is PCRF, it is packet core, DRA, like SBCs, everything is actually is the cloud-based. So we have our clouds which are fully ready to actually upgrade for 5G. And this is what we already did when we did the trial in Pune and Gandhinagar. We didn't buy any separate core network. We upgraded the part of the core network for 5G and we conducted the trial. And having this cloud-based, virtual machine-based, actually the core network gave the flexibility and scalability. So I think there also, I would say from core point of view also, we are ready to go for the NSA based immediately, and in the future we can go for the SA based architecture of the 5G services.
I think the way you have described it and you make it all look so easy and doable, I remember it was not very long ago when there was stiff opposition from the operators, many operators saying that we have just finished our investments in 4G and we have really not been able to leverage 4G, and that moving from 4G to 5G will not be very easy. There will be a lot of equipment and hardware, software which will have to be thrown away, etc. So what has happened? How is it that all that you have invested so far, you are saying is that all of that is it can be used as we get into the 5G rollout mode?
So Ibrahim, there are three parts to it. Again, I will simplify it. One is
so if you have understood my question, Jagbir, that
yes, I understood.
Back, we were being told that it's going to be very, very difficult. Today you are saying it's all ready and all very easy. So what happened in between?
Yeah, so I think there's a reason I reply in three parts.
Yeah.
Part number one, in terms of the confidence of the operators and the maturity of the technology, understanding of the technology actually have improved over the past 2-3 years. Specifications have become more clear. The maturity of the technology has come in the picture. The trials and pilots have been done by a lot of operators, including us. So that has given actually the understanding of the technology, interworking of the technology, and also the maturity of the technology. So I think that is a shift. In addition to this, I think a lot of network have been deployed around the world. So they are actually the reality and proven that it works. It is matured enough and we understand now how to make it work. So that is a difference in 2 years. The second part of this is I'm not going away from the fact that it's going to be expensive. it's going to be a financial, if not a burden, it's a challenge. Paying for the spectrum and then getting the new capex, because initially the 5G spectrum, if we talk about sub 6 gigahertz, then it's going to be 3.5 gigahertz. That means we'll be needing more base stations. That means more fiber connectivity. That means robust transport network. That means more base station. That means more capex. So that is not gone away. So that still remains the challenge in terms of getting the money, and that too, not too much upside of the ARPU is seen in the countries where the 5G has been deployed or have been deployed. So that challenge still remains. So that is the second part of your question. And the third part, in terms of how we are getting ready, since we are understood, at least we understand that 5G core, for example, is going to be all cloud-based. So deploy everything of 4G on the cloud-based. So we are ready, we are not throwing anything, and we can upgrade for 5G anytime. Same thing in the RAN side, whenever we buy the equipment, we ensure that we are buying the equipment which can be upgraded to 5G. So I think that has given us the comfort feeling, and at the same time, the transport network also, we have started upgrading slowly to make it ready for 5G. So I think these are the areas where the operators have worked, and we have worked as Vodafone Idea, where we are saying that we are getting ready for 5G, which is cloud point of view, transport point of view, and what are the infrastructure we deploy. We always keep in mind the 5G as service going forward.
Okay, thanks. So maybe we will touch upon this a little later once again. But keeping in mind that a lot of our guests and viewers today are also very keen to know how does it finally going to benefit them. Vodafone Idea has done some very, very interesting use case studies recently. One that you did in Pune, and then you did one in Gandhinagar. So what were the outcomes of those pilots or those use case tests that you've done, and what are some of the lessons from there, from Pune and from Gandhinagar?
Okay, Ibrahim. So I think on use case part, so let's see the use case for the B2B and B2C.
Yeah, exactly.
And everyone's saying more around the B2B than the B2C. The 5G is more relevant over there and going to make the difference in the life of business we do, the way the business we do. So before I go to that, I think one thing we have learned is that use cases of the 5G is going to be part of the, I may call it, it's like a ecosystem of the partnership. So there'll be a network provider, there'll be a people who develop the application and services, there'll be an integrator, there will be a device provider. So in this case, all the use cases are not going to come from the traditional vendors or the operators. It's actually a development of the partnership ecosystem where you can bring many use cases and the applications which can be supported in 5G and can make the 5G really interesting. So that is one, so whenever we think about the use case of 5G, we have to think about the partnership. Because nowadays, a lot of IT companies and the digital companies who are coming and doing the great job in terms of development of the apps and the services. So this is what we learned, and we did the same thing actually. We did a lot of use case where we did the connected ambulance, we did the remote medicines, we did the remote health, etc. All these applications came from the third parties, not from the either operator or from the telco vendor side. And I think another B2C use case is going to be cloud gaming. So we find that 5G, since it provides as native, that you can have the low latency, which is very much critical for the gaming. So 5G is actually very well suited for this kind of application. So cloud gaming, AR, VR, or the remote health, remote education. These are the applications which we showed in Gandhinagar as well as in Pune. And we find that, yes, these applications will be the reality when the 5G comes. Yes, there will be a maturity time, So it's not that from day one it's going to be like a normal, like everywhere. It might take some time. Similarly, when we go for the B2B, I think, as I said, the remote education is one, remote health is another one. Maybe like the good one, you can take the remote monitoring, for example, of the tunnels, infrastructure job, or the factories automation, enterprise offices automation, remote surveillance. Like today, we have the good example is like we are going to have the remote data centers, mobile edge compute. Having the expertise everywhere in the remote areas is very difficult. So you can have like using the 5G AR, VR, or using the surveillance kind of applications. Like you can train the people that there could be a low skill person at the site, and like for example in mining, for example in the rural areas, they can be guided and you can get the work done with the low skill people. So I think these are the applications. Yes, they looks very easy to say. How to make money is a challenge. How to make them popularize is a challenge. But I'm sure, as I said, if the whole ecosystem or the partnership is going to work, then I'm sure one day this will become a reality and hopefully may add to the bottom line.
Yeah, I think you are absolutely right, because e-health and e-education were some of those areas which continue to grow and boom actually even during the time of crisis. And we have seen a lot of acceptance and adaptability to these new applications in this time. So I'm sure that these would be the... So you also mentioned about new partners and some, because telecom already has got a very widespread, very diverse, stable ecosystem in place. Now in this journey to make 5G successful, you talked about and the examples of the case studies that you have done, the use cases that you have done. You've talked about getting new kind of partners in the overall ecosystem. So what kind of partners will they be? And
I think I would not like to name anybody for that matter because it's still too early. But the partners who are coming and who are actually you can say, developing the applications and the services around the 5G. Like for example, I said the tunnel monitoring. So there's a work going on in the tunnel. You can put actually surveillance over there. And then there's an application which is guiding the person, whether go inside the tunnel, come out, left, right, all those kind of guidance, because they are doing the data analytics in the real time. They know better than this labor guy or the guy who's actually inside the tunnel and doing the job. So take care of their health and safety, take care of their productivity and efficiency. There's a remote guidance happening based on a lot of data analytics of that area. Inside the tunnel, what happens? Same thing you can take, as I said, if it's a case of the remote health, you are getting uploaded all the X-rays, MRIs, and CT scan, etc. Guidance happening from the doctor to the very low skill doctor in real time basis. Now this is actually application which is developed by somebody to give it to hospitals, and telcos have no expertise actually in this case. So anybody can do anything, but I think it's better that people who are meant for this job are doing that job. So people are developing. Same thing like people are monitoring while football, while the cricket match, seeing the body balance, body strength, weakness, angles, etc., fitting some, sensors in the body. So we showed that actually in Pune. So to train the person to do the better job. So there are many applications because one need to understand that subject as well before you develop the application. So these are the examples. Same thing when we do the factory automation. I think there will be a lot of things which are sensitive to the factory environment for the person who is working in the factory. Same thing, like when we do any surveillance based on a lot of data analytics actually. For example, you want to see somebody doing the, wrong things at the, some areas where too much rush and too many people. You do the surveillance of like based on the person look, feel, movement, what he's carrying, so a lot of data has to come in the real time basis, which is possible only by having 5G. So these are the like some of the examples, and I'm sure many examples are there like this.
Yeah. So what has been, if you can very quickly give us an idea about what has been the feedback from some of your enterprise customers or some of your partners with whom these enterprise test cases are being, use cases being done? Are they, what have they said after the initial tests?
I think in general, people are excited about it, but everybody asks at what cost and the maturity levels and the availability of the devices and the ecosystem. So I think the time will tell, what is kind of the ROI going to be and adoption going to be. But I'm sure people are open for the new ideas, and especially wherever we solve the problem of efficiency, productivity, health and safety, for sure, everybody looking forward to have it.
So again, you are a veteran and an expert in this area. So what kind of timeline do you think is likely for these technologies, these applications to mature?
I think I would say maybe 2 to 3 years.
Okay, 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that gives us an idea about how patient we should be and that this is going to be the future.
Yeah, but somebody has to start now to get it in 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you mentioned when you were talking in one of the questions earlier was about the spectrum thing. So anything interesting that you are seeing or embracing from the network slicing experience with the 5G trials that you are doing in Gujarat?
I think we show the network slicing, very good feature. So now if you see what are the benefits? So it's basically network slicing. The physical network is one. Logically, you are slicing that network in the multiple slice. So the benefit is going to be that I can dedicate the portion of the network or the network resources for a given service, given SLA, whatever customer needs. To give you the very good example, like you would have heard of that people are talking about the private networks for the enterprise. Now giving the private network for enterprise for the, dedicating the spectrum only for some enterprises is not a right way of actually using the spectrum. The best thing is you give that spectrum to the service provider, telcos. This public network we can slice for a given customer. So we can actually ensure the KPIs and SLA by using the slicing as a feature. And this spectrum, other than that premise, is being used for somebody else. So it's a most efficient way of the using spectrum and also the CapEx. In this case, this CapEx is not fully being used by that customer. It's basically part of that slice is being used. So the CapEx is also being shared. So I think the network slicing is going to be a very good example. And we are hearing now as part of these specifications that even the devices are going to support up to 8 slices. So in the same handphone, or the same device, actually, I can have 8 type of different services running. For internet, I can have 1 bandwidth. For the YouTube, I can have 1 bandwidth. For the voice, I can have 1 bandwidth. It's not there today, but it will come over the period. So I think network slicing is a fantastic feature to have it in 5G, which is available only in 5G. And that will help in terms of giving these use cases required latency, required resources of the network to support that service more effectively and efficiently.
Oh, that's very interesting. So you mean that I as a user can maybe dedicate this much bandwidth for my internet, this much for voice, this much for some banking application?
Yes.
Okay, that's really very good. So enterprise businesses are very excited because they are being told and they are being promised that 5G will be really very, very good for them in terms of things like private networks and so on and so forth. But obviously they have some concerns also. Their concerns are to do with quality of service and SLAs. Their concerns are related to latency or with security. So does slicing bring some of these concerns to the table, and how are they likely to be addressed?
Ibrahim, I think, first thing is, let's see the network or the security part. Public network versus the private network of any enterprise. There's no doubt everybody will accept public networks are much more secured, and we have a lot of licensing conditions, regulatory conditions to ensure that we have the full 100% compliance to the security. And you can't have that with the private networks. That is on the security part. Second is, I think network slicing and 5G as a technology itself is highly secured. Third is, how do I ensure the SLAs and KPIs for the customer? I think the SLAs and KPIs, as I said, by having the slicing, I can dedicate the resources for the customer. Now, coming to the reliability part, as I said, like if I deploy only for a given enterprise want to deploy, I don't think the enterprise can afford to have, or every enterprise can afford to have that much redundancy the way the public networks have. We have the redundancy for everything. So actually, we are the best people in terms of providing the reliability for the enterprise. Why the people go to the public cloud? Because you are getting the reliability. So anything of the public networks are supposed to be highly secured, highly reliable, and supposed to be more efficient in terms of producing the capacity unit. That unit could be voice unit, data unit, GB unit, petabytes, or any service unit. So I see the, like 5G along with the network slicing is the best solution actually for the enterprise market.
That's very reassuring, Jagbir. Thanks. We earlier talked about the cost and the other challenges that we will encounter as we move on the 5G journey. So what kind of costs or challenges as well as benefits do telcos expect when they embrace, you talked about the cloud native networks and open modular infrastructure, instead of those traditional proprietary closed hardware heavy kind of networks and other things?
Yeah, first thing, I think I take out the spectrum from the equation. So a spectrum has to be really almost free to promote 5G. Okay, that is our wish. Because I think you may like to see the GSMA data of the network from 8 quarters to the 13 or 14 quarters back. So 8 to like 13 quarters, that means 2 to 3 years. Deployment of the 5G services, what's the impact on the ARPU for those operators in those markets? You can take US, you can take Korea, you can take China, you can take Japan. So there are many networks which have been deployed 8 quarters back to 12 quarters back. Overall improvement in ARPU is 0. So there's no improvement in the ARPU, and there's no actually sign of further improvement in ARPU. So now that is the reason that, a spectrum price, we can't afford to actually have any, big price, and everybody is realizing that. So now if we really want to, and this industry as such, at least in India, financially, we are not doing good. So even to deploy CapEx itself is a big challenge for 5G. So we need to ensure that we have enough money left for the CapEx by not, having the big cost for the spectrum. And also at the same time, our Prime Minister want to, which is the right thing to do it, Make in India initiative. And if we deploy 5G faster, then I think the Make in India growth also will happen faster. So that means we need to have the enough money left for the CapEx deployment. So this is on the, the CapEx side and the spectrum side. Now coming back, I think 5G as a service, one of the benefit we will have is going to be like cloud native, which basically is going to be container-based service where I can have any infrastructure. On that infrastructure, I can create the containers for a given service. And the benefit of these containers is going to be actually I can scale in out. So I can increase the capacity anytime, I can decrease the capacity, I don't lose the CapEx part. and I can move the capacity from one service to another service. So you get all the efficiencies of hardware, capex, services, and you get fantastic automation where actually you can apply the AI ML to see the performance of the services and the containers. And you can deploy the microservices almost on the real-time basis. And in this case, this actually follow the traditional model of, we call it like CI/CD. So continuous improvement, continuous deployment, whereby then you don't have to take any outage for any service upgrade or any software upgrade. It's like it continuously, you can on the fly, a real-time basis, you can keep doing. So I think these are the benefits. Until now, the cloud native was not very popular for the telco. I think 5G is making that popular, and 5G services and the 5G intelligence is actually demanding the cloud native, container based. Whatever we have deployed cloud native application mostly are in the IT side until now, but telco is going to in big way. And we at Vodafone Idea, whatever the virtual machines we are deployed, the VMs we are deployed, we can easily upgrade to the cloud native.
Yeah, I think you have articulated it very well, Jagbir, that this 5G and the spectrum for 5G has to be seen in the long-term perspective from the national growth, national economic development perspective, and rather than just a money-making thing by the government. And I hope that under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, that sense comes and we see a lot more realistic pricing of the spectrum for 5G. And other point that regarding cloud, I think the way technology, in the direction in which the technology is growing, one would see much more adoption and usability of cloud. Thank you so much. My next question is about the hybrid model for telcos. So do you think that the hybrid model for telcos, when they want to explore 5G ready architecture, is that a good thought?
I think answer, Ibrahim, is yes. So again, I will break this hybrid model in two parts. So one is the hybrid model of 4G and 5G as the networks and the technologies. As we know that any technology to become seamless on ground in the field, so even if we start deploying 5G, I think it will take 2, 3, 4 years before it can become seamless coverage everywhere. So until then, you need to have the base coverage layer, which is a 4G, which in general support most of the demand of today. So the 4G will coexist with 5G, and 4G also is efficiently supporting the voice services using VoLTE. So I think the coexistence of the 4G and 5G will continue for at least 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Okay, that is my personal guess. And in addition to this, another coexistence is coexistence of the RAN network of 4G and 5G in terms of having the dual connectivity. So as you may be knowing, this 5G is the technology which is not backward compatible like 2G, 3G, and 4G. Here, in this case, if you really want to use both network 4G and 5G, you have the simultaneously two connections. So this is called the dual connectivity. So for the NSA architecture, we will have the device getting connected simultaneously for both the network, and this coexistence will ensure the seamless experience for the customer. Because as I said, the 5G maturity in terms of the seamless coverage and being available everywhere will take some time. So customers should not have the bad experience, should not suffer. So the dual connectivity concept will continue. That means the 4G and 5G, coexistence will continue.
Yeah, I think that's a very practical answer that you have given, because I think for the customer, quality of service is going to be very critical, and there I think this hybrid model will be the best thing for them to ensure that they get their services quality is not affected. We are talking of hybrid model. Jagbir, do you get distracted by some people when they say there is 6G also in the labs and 6G is also coming soon? Does that distract you?
Answer is no. I think any technology maturity takes at least 5 years before it is out from the specifications. And it takes another 2, 3, 4 years before it is available in the field. So I would say the total cycle from the day we have the thought to the maturity level, 8 to 10 years.
So
Okay.
for the next 8 to 10 years, let's not even worry about.
But it is a good initiative by our government, by our telecom minister. At least we should be in the forefront of the technology.
Mhm.
So 5G, 6G specifications, if they are coming and being talked in the international forums, we should be in forefront of that. So it's a right time for us that we start participating in those committees, forums, and start working on the specification which are beneficial to the India as a country.
Yeah.
So I think that is the objective, what I hear from the market, that we should start working on that, and that will give us the benefit when we are doing the Make in India 5G equipment. Then we have to ensure the backward compatibility or the roadmap towards the 6G,
yes.
if we understand the 6G specification. So I think this is in that context. So we understand this way, and I see no problem. In fact, it's a welcome, like a move that at least now, under this leadership of Mr. Prime Minister Modi, we at least start participating globally and we become the leader in this area.
Yeah. One last question, Jagbir, and that is about these technologies like all these technologies or these concepts of network functions virtualization or multi-programmable processors or narrowband IoT. When we think of reconfiguring the network infrastructure for 5G, how crucial, how critical will some of these things be?
I think the network function virtualization already happening in 4G. It's essential to have it, as I said, to take the benefit of the cloud. And to actually reduce the CapEx and OpEx. We should be able to follow the NFV architecture. There's no doubt about it. NB-IoT is actually going to continue for some time. It's not that it's essential for all the, whether it's going to be NB-IoT or the IoT as a service. I think there will be a migration from NB to IoT overall basis, but IoT services will continue because now everything is becoming automated and connected, like all the cars. So for the service, for the health of the car, engine, etc., everything everything is connected today. All the tracking vehicles, like when they are on the road, everything is like commercial vehicles are getting tracked. All the factory devices and sensors are getting tracked. It's all coming through the IoT. So machine to machine, IoT and NFV architecture, I think all the processes which are coming, the multi-programmable, that's basically that I can use the same CPU or same storage for any purpose, multi-purpose.
Yeah.
Because I don't know today what is the application or service I'm going to run. But as long as I have the resources, I can use this resource, like human beings. We can be used for physical work, we can use for mental work, we can use for health, we can use for office or at home, or it's like a multi-programmable kind of machine or the storage which can be used, which will be more efficient to actually ensure the efficiencies and the future proof in terms of the investment.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and that's what we will make. I think that this entire investment of money, time, everything is very important so that it is future proof. I think that's very, very important. So one last point, Jagbir, I have been asking all the questions so far. So is there any short message that you would like to give to the Indian telecom, not just industry, but the overall Indian telecom ecosystem, which includes the policy makers also, if we have to really make 5G journey fast and successful? Is there any message that you would like to have? As I said in the beginning, Indian telecom infrastructure really looks up to Jagbir Singh. Whatever Jagbir Singh says, especially from the telecom technology and technology future perspective, it's very, very important. So is there any message that you would like to give to our viewers?
So first thing, Ibrahim, I'm a very small person. Okay, I have the experience in telecom. Yes. So keeping that in mind, actually, what I think is, if I take two or three direction of this question, first thing is very most welcome move of the government of India in terms of taking the lead for the Make in India, and we should all support together without any hesitation. Even if we face some problem, doesn't matter, because any technology maturity takes time, and we need to have the patience to ensure that we are supporting all those manufacturers and all the people who are working on these standards. So that's one message, and we as a telco need to be open to support them, support the manufacturers, support this ecosystem of the application development, support the government policies. And I think overall together, we are the large enough country, and we deserve to have our specification lead, our manufacturing capabilities, our software development capability already there to actually harness them towards the telco side, and we have the enough and big market to consume. So with this mindset, if we go together, I think we can develop the 5G ecosystem, going forward 6G ecosystem very fast, and we can be on the right track.
Well, thank you so much, Jagbir, for your time and for some of the great inputs and advice that you have given on the future of 5G in India. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Thanks for inviting me for this Voice and Data event. Thank you very much.
And look forward to have you again with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen, for such a lovely session.